Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to the Slumpbuster Fantasy Football Podcast, recording here on Sunday, December 10th, 2019. Find us on major streaming platforms. On today's episode, Aris breaks down NFL Week 14, and we get you ready for those Fantasy Football Semifinals. Let's get into it. Let's bust that slump. Let's go.
I suck at fantasy football. I was terrible at high school football.
No, you weren't, sweetie.
Really good at drinking beer and not falling on my face.
Does that include 10-minute drunk dials?
I was born ready, but somehow I'm still in last place.
Is that why your friends call you Lloyd Carr?
How do you know Lloyd Carr?
I actually read.
No championship again this year for my team. Michael Vick and the Kennels of Fun. See, that's a funny name.
No.
It's a funny name.
No, it's not. That is so insulting to our dogs.
We don't even have... We have a dog?
Really?
No, fine, whatever. You win everything. You win everything. I'm gonna go read about dogs.
What is up, guys? I am back from my quote-unquote load management, back from Denver, where I watched my Chargers lose in heartbreaking fashion again with let's be honest, that was a bullshit, absolute bullshit pass interference call. All right, guys, I just had to get that off my chest. I'm back from this. We are in the playoffs. Hopefully, fingers crossed, y'all made it to the next round like I did. One of my leagues, I had a bye. The other league right now, I am probably going to win. As long as Russell Wilson doesn't throw an interception or fumble the ball, I'm going to win. I would really love a touchdown from Seattle right now, but they're not getting there right now. And then to my other league, man, I fought hard. I'm going to finish in second to last place. You can't be perfect. You can't be competitive in them all. It's just that it was a rough year for me in that league. It's just how it goes. Can't be perfect. But then my Chargers won today. Let's go. Domination. We have yet to lose a game by more than 7 points, but in 3 of our wins, we have won by more than 2 scores. So we're competing. We're getting better. Phillip Rivers is staying our quarterback. He's in Rivers we trust. Man, I love that guy. Happy birthday, Philly Rivs. And unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to play my mom again next week to get into the championship game. So if I lose to her, oh, God forbid if I lose to her, she will never let me hear at the end of that. She'll be like, oh, my gosh, you have a fantasy podcast, and I beat you in fantasy. And then she's going to probably try to get her second title in a row. Yeah, I need to beat my mom, guys. Wish me luck, because I'm going to need it next week. Our team's pretty stacked. She will be getting no help from me whatsoever. Usually we kind of talk about lineups and stuff like that, but next week she is cut off. So, Mom, you can't listen to this podcast because I can't have you gaining any sort of advantage on me this week. So, that being said, let's get into this first week of playoffs. Hopefully, you're listening to me because you're still in the playoffs. If you're not in the playoffs, if you lost, hey, just keep listening. Knowledge is power. Knowledge will gain you experience in next year. You know, you could see different types of ways of thinking. You could see what people are looking for this time of year. So hopefully you stay with us even though you're not in the playoffs. But hey, let's have a good show. Let's try to get into that championship game, guys, because that's what it's all about. Bragging rights, trophy, money, whatever you're playing for. That's what it's all about. All right, so this first game, let's get into that Thursday night game where America won. Whenever Dallas loses, America wins. That's why they're America's team. Not because America loves them. It's because America hates them because all of their fans, yes, you, Antonio, I'm talking to you, are freaking annoying. But Dallas went to Chicago. They lost this game. Dak has been pretty good, even though the team kind of stinks. He's been doing pretty well fantasy-wise. 334, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Added 3 carries on the ground for 1 yard, no touchdowns. He's still going to be a low-end QB1. He can put up those numbers, and he's going to be in games that have the Rams and Philly. They're going to want to win. They're going to compete because they're still fighting for a division championship. They're not going to get into the playoffs on a wild card because, man, the NFC is stacked. They're not going to get in at 9-7, 10-6. They're probably not going to get into the playoffs as a wild card at that record. So their only shot is to win the division. So they're going to be they're going to be pushing forward. So look for them to actually still compete. They're still going to be usable. Zeke, 81 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. He had 2 catches for 12 yards. Zeke's still going to be a RB1 going forward. Michael Gallup, 6 catches, 109 through the air, no touchdowns. Amari Cooper, 6 catches, 83 yards and a touchdown. Cooper is going to start to be a low-end wide receiver 1. I'll put him in a high-end wide receiver 2 as well. And then Michael Gallup's going to be about a mid-range 2 to a mid-range 3. On the Bears side, Trubisky looked like he was a baller because Dallas sucks and we love it. Trubisky, 244, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 63 on the ground, and another touchdown. So 4 total touchdowns. Unfortunately, he's still going to be a QB2. He's not going to be in that QB1 conversation. But no, because next 2 matchups, they get Green Bay and Kansas City. So it's going to be tougher from a quarterback standpoint. David Montgomery, 86 yards on the ground. No touchdowns. I'm putting him as a running back 3. Allen Robinson, though, helped you get into the playoffs at this point. He's been killer the last couple weeks. Hopefully he helped you on. In my family league, the guy that has him, he actually sat him, so it didn't help him. He's going to lose this week. Allen Robinson, though, 5 catches, 48 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's going to be right there, right around a mid to a high wide receiver 2. Yeah, Kansas City and Green Bay, they have beatable defenses. It's not the toughest matchup, but it's not the easiest matchup. It's right there in the middle. So I could see him going, right around this, maybe 50 yards and a touchdown. He is definitely the number 1 out there. Trubisky looks for him. So I would definitely fire him up. Montgomery, I would sit. Trubisky, I'd probably sit him unless you absolutely have to. Then, might as well play him, but I just don't have any confidence in him going forward. Next game we'll go into is Carolina at Atlanta. Carolina lost this one 20-40. Cam Newton's time in Carolina is done. They're going to blow up this team. They fired Ron Rivera. They really have nothing to play for anymore. They're not in playoff contention. These couple weeks, it's kind of hard. They're just playing for pride at this point. They're playing for jobs. Kyle Allen right now is playing for a job next year, either with this team or with another team, maybe as a backup, maybe as a bridge quarterback. So expect him to still ball out. C-Mac, they might lessen his workload because there's nothing else for them to play for. Why hurt your best player going down the stretch? So hopefully they don't do that for your fantasy purposes, but just look for that. Maybe make sure you're reading all of the notes on whatever platform you're playing on. But Kyle Allen, 293 through the air, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, but added 24 on the ground and ran for a touchdown. He's going to be a QB2 with upside, but just like I said, they play Seattle next week. That's a little bit tougher of a matchup for him. I think that's just, I don't see them doing too much there. And then they get Indy the following week. So that might be the better matchup if you're going to play him going forward. Christian McCaffrey, 11 carries, 53 yards, no touchdowns, but then he had 11 catches for 82 yards. Still no touchdowns, but those 11 catches in a PPR league, especially if you're in a full point, that's just bonkers for especially a running back. Still RB1 on the year, so you have to play him. Curtis Samuel, 2 catches for 25 yards, 3 carries for 17 yards. He's nothing more than a low-end wide receiver 3 or a flex option. DJ Moore is going to be a low-end wide receiver 2 with boom potential. His floor is pretty high. It's right around like 50 yards or so, which is about 5 points. So it's a decent floor. We wish it'd be a little bit more, but he's the team's number 1. So if you have to play him next week, definitely can. But he's probably just your low-end wide receiver 2 or high-end wide receiver 3 at this point in the year. But he had 4 catches for 81 yards. On the Atlanta side, Matt Ryan, 313, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, king of garbage time. Next week, he gets San Francisco, so I'd probably sit him, even though San Francisco's given up actually a lot of yardage to Lamar Jackson and Drew Brees the last couple of weeks. Their offensive weapons are a little bit better than what Atlanta has. And then they get Jacksonville within a very beatable defense. Just look what the Chargers did this week. We'll talk about that in a second. So I could see Matt Ryan going off in the championship game if you make it there. But next week is probably a down week for him. Freeman actually had a game, 84 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, added 4 catches for 10 yards. He's been very disappointing this year just because of the volume. He's a low-end running back too. That volume wasn't there. He'd be more of a mid-3 at this point, but just because of the volume, he's going to be a running back 2. Calvin Ridley in recent weeks since that Sanu trade has taken that step forward where we were hoping for with him. 5 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be about a mid to low wide receiver 2. And then Julio, I mean, I hate to say this, but he's probably a wide receiver 2 at this point. He really hasn't put up the numbers like he has in the past. His ceiling is still super high because it is Julio, because of garbage time. But it's just all the injuries have taken a toll on him, and it's just a down year for him, unfortunately, for the owners that drafted him. Next, we'll swing over to the game in Lambeau. Washington 15, Green Bay 20. I was really hoping for Washington to win this one because I just, as long as it doesn't involve my team, I am all for chaos. And if Dallas were to lose out the next 4 games and Washington win all 4 games, Washington would have won the division at 7-9. That's how garbage the NFC East is this year. And I'm all for chaos. When I was talking to Julian, I was hoping for chaos in the college playoff system. I was hoping for Utah to win out. I was hoping for Baylor to win out. I was hoping for Minnesota to win out. I was hoping for Clemson to lose. And I was just hoping for everything. But it just didn't happen. I love chaos. I love putting all these people into weird situations where they have to figure stuff out. It just makes the game more fun. As long as it doesn't involve my team, I'm perfectly fine with it. But unfortunately, Washington lost this one. They got eliminated from playoff contention. Haskins, don't even play him right now. He's a QB3. 170 through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Adrian Peterson is going to be a high-volume RB2 next week. We'll get into why here in just a second. But 20 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown. The reason for his high volume is Geis left this game injured after 5 carries for 42 yards. Geis sprained his MCL, which is the best news for this guy. He is battling knee problems already in his young career. He ruined his rookie season. It's ruined the majority of his second year as well. So I was really hoping for, when I saw this guy go down, that it wasn't severe. And best news available, it's just an MCL sprain. Look for them to probably shut him down for the year, which means Adrian Peterson is going to just have high volume. They have Philly next week and the Giants the week after. So high volume. Hopefully he does something with that high volume. But in fantasy, opportunity is key. The more opportunities you have to do something, the better your chances. And then McLaurin, 4 catches, 57 yards, and a awesome one-handed touchdown. Fortunately, it's just, with Dwayne Haskins, it's not really materializing to a bunch. He's just a wide receiver 3 boomer bust guy because his floor is a 0 floor, but his ceiling is pretty high. But again, he's still a 0 floor player. On the Green Bay side, Rodgers, in a statement after the game, says he doesn't care if they win ugly as long as they're winning, and they're winning, so he doesn't really care about his numbers too much, which bodes well for them. Real life, but fantasy, not so much. 190 through the air, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Added 5 carries for 16 yards. He's still a QB1. Matchup-wise, is a bit tough. He has Chicago and Minnesota. I'd still probably play him unless you have a better option. But it's Rodgers. You kind of want to play him because his ceiling is super high. His floor is probably this right here, 195 and a touchdown. I really don't see him going in games where he has no touchdowns and a bunch of interceptions, so he's a safe bet going forward. Aaron Jones, though, is a man. 134 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, added 6 catches for 58 yards. RB1 going forward for sure. I mean, he's killing it. He hasn't lost a lot of touches to Williams. Maybe that was because Williams came into the game hurt, but I mean, just be careful with that. But he's still the guy to own. Williams right now is just merely a handcuff or a flex option. Williams 7 carries for 24 yards. And then receiver-wise, the only guy that you can really rely on in this offense is Devontae Adams. Fortunately, today he had a terrible game. 4 catches for 41 yards. This is probably his floor. Last week where he had 2 touchdowns. It's going to be more like his ceiling. Average is going to be right in the middle, 80 yards and a touchdown generally. But he's going to be a wide receiver 1 going forward. And more than likely the only guy you can trust in this receiving core. Next, we'll head to the other NFC North matchup that we saw. Detroit 7 at Minnesota 20. Minnesota still fighting for a playoff spot. Detroit, they're done for. At this point, most of these guys are playing for jobs, especially most of the skill position guys, because quarterback's a third-string quarterback, running back. He was a practice squad guy. He's finally getting his chance. And then receivers, Jones and Galladay, they're they're going to be there next year. So they're all playing for jobs now. They're playing for pride at this point. Sometimes can be better than playing for a position because they're trying to secure that bag. They're trying to get that next contract. So that could be, in your benefit there as well. The quarterback, Blau, 205 through the air, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He's going to be a QB3. Nobody's really going to mess with him. Scarborough, 19 carries, 65 yards, added 1 catch for 5 yards. This is pretty much going to be him. He doesn't have a huge passing down role. He's going to be a touchdown dependent running back 3. The volume is there, just he's not doing much with it. He's only having like 3 yards per carry right now on the year for the couple games that he's been in. I don't really see them bringing Kerryon Johnson back. There's nothing for them to play for. So why hurt your prized running back? So I would expect Scarborough to continue to be the bell cow for them going forward. Marvin Jones Jr. is just going to be a wide receiver 3, boomer bust guy, 3 catches for 38 yards. That's going to be his floor, but his ceiling is going to be pretty high. You saw he had a 4 touchdown game this year, but more than likely he's going to be around this floor area, 45 yards, 50 yards, right around there. And then Galladay, he's still going to be a high-end wide receiver 2. If Stafford was there, I'd put him at a wide receiver 1, but Stafford's not. I don't see him coming back this year as well because there's not really much for them to play for. 6 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown for him on the day. On the Minnesota side, Cousins, 242, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He's going to be a low-end QB1. Dalvin Cook, 18 carries, 62 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 catches for 13 yards. He's still going to be a RB1. Probably not going to be a high end anymore. He's probably going to be about a mid-range guy just because they're going to be lessening his load. Mattinson had 14 carries for 56 yards, no touchdowns, added 2 catches for 18 yards. So the touch count for Mattison's there. They're taking it away from Cook. They're not going to want to have him hurt going into the playoffs. They're going to want him a running game in the playoffs is key for real life. So him battling a shoulder injury, look for him to have a lessened role, not much, but just a slight decrease from his astronomical numbers that he's been putting up. So just knock him down, 1 or 2 notches on your rankings. Stephon Diggs is going to take a hit once Adam Thielen comes back, 6 catches for 92 yards. He's still going to be a high-end 2 with a boom potential of 1, but I'm going to put him probably at a mid-2 once Thielen comes back. They get my Chargers next week, who've done pretty well against the pass, and then they get Green Bay the following week. Now we'll switch to another one of the NFC home games. Indianapolis 35, Tampa Bay 38. Tampa Bay is out of playoff contention. With this loss, Indianapolis is more than likely out. They're still in it, so they're still going to be fighting for it. They're still going to be pushing for it. So look for all that fun stuff going down the stretch, especially in this AFC South. Anything's really can happen in this division. It's pretty wild, to be honest with you. But Brissett, 251, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, added 4 carries for 26 yards. He's going to be a QB2. He's kind of fallen off in recent weeks. He's not putting up those, huge numbers like he was earlier in the year. Marlon Mack on the return from the broken hand, 13 carries, 38 yards, and a touchdown. Kind of saw this coming. Tampa Bay has the second best run defense behind, surprisingly, the Jets. Surprisingly, Jets have the best run defense in the league, but Tampa Bay's second best run defense in the league. Max, unfortunately, he's hindered because he has no passing down role. He's going to be a bell cow. He's going to get anywhere from 15 to 20 touches once he's fully healthy from his hand. This was a good test for that. So he's going to be a low-end, volume-based running back 2. Johnson, if T.Y. is still out, I can see him having another boom game. 3 catches, 105, 1 touchdown. Like I said, they're still fighting for a playoff spot, so they might have T.Y. come back. But if they get eliminated, T.Y. is probably done for the year. Zach Pascal, again, if he has no T.Y., he's going to get a bump in that rankings as well. 5 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Pascal, I'd probably put at a low-end 3 with a boom potential. And then Johnson right now, just because he's unproven, he's probably a high-end flex, a low-end 3 option. On the Tampa Bay side, they have a pretty favorable schedule going forward. They get Detroit, who has a very beatable team, and then Houston, their secondary is not that good. I mean, heck, Drew Lock had a killer game in his second start against them. Even Brady, who has been putting up terrible numbers, had a pretty decent day against them. Jameis Winston finished this day with 456 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, added 6 carries for 5 yards, and another touchdown. I can see a lot of this repeating the next 2 weeks. I can, as crazy as it sounds, is he can be, QB1 next week or even QB2 next week. I mean, hell, he was QB2 on the week, only surpassed by Drew Brees' monster day. Man, and in this backfield, you had Ronald Jones, 11 carries, 36 yards, no touchdowns. Peyton Barber, 11 carries, 34 yards, no touchdowns. If you know who's going to get all those points in this league or in this backfield, let your boy know, because right now I'm avoiding this like the plague. 1 week it's this guy, 1 week it's this guy, 1 week it's that guy, 1 week it's this guy. So it's just up and down all year long with these two. On the receiver side, you had Mike Evans, 1 catch, 61 yards, 1 interception, or 1 touchdown, not interception. But he did leave injured. This hammy, it looked bad. He was grimacing all crazy, so he might not be available for next week, which swings the door open for 2 guys. O.J. Howard, 4 catches, 73 yards, and Perryman, 3 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Perryman right now would slide into a high-end wide receiver 3. O.J. Howard would move to a high-end, even a low-end tight end 1. And then this just booms Godwin even more, 7 catches, 91 yards on the day, booms him even more into that wide receiver 1 discussion as well. Now we'll swing to my personal game of the week, because I had so much riding on this one game in fantasy matchups. I had my defense against my boss's flex player and quarterback. So there was a lot riding on this game for me. Pittsburgh ended up winning this one and helping me win my matchup this week, 23-17 against Arizona. Devlin Ducky Hodges, the world champion duck caller. Granted, his numbers aren't all that good, but you can just see the team plays better with him than they did with Mason Rudolph. Duck Hodges, 152 through the air, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, added 3 carries for 34 yards. This guy is just fun to watch. The offense seems to have a spark that they didn't have with Rudolph. He's still going to be nothing more than a low-end QB2. Benny Snell, 41 yards on the ground, no touchdowns, lost a fumble. He was in the doghouse most of the game. With James Conner hopefully coming back next week, it kind of spells all these, him, Samuels, Edmonds, kind of spells all those guys back to fantasy irrelevance. But if Conner does sit, I'd still avoid these guys, even though they have a decent matchup in Buffalo. Buffalo's run defense isn't top 10, but it's not the bottom 10. They're right there in the middle. Nobody's really distanced themselves, from this committee backfield. Snell did have the most carries out of the backfield, I believe, with 12 or 13. So he did have the more opportunities, but nobody really did anything with them. On the receiver side, if Juju is still out, I like Deontay Johnson better than James Washington. Johnson just looks like he has a better rapport with Duck Hodges. 6 catches, 60 yards, 1 touchdown. Hopefully your league is like mine and you get a return touchdown as well, because he had a punt return for a touchdown, so it's an extra 6 points. James Washington, 4 carries for 33 yards. So Johnson, I would put him at a, mid 3. Washington, I'd put him at a low 3. And then Juju, I'd probably put at a low end 2 with Duck. On the Arizona side, you had Kyler Murray, 194, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, added 6 carries for 2 yards. This has pretty much been his numbers throughout the year. He's going to be a low end 2. I'm not starting him with any confidence whatsoever. He's only had like 1 or 2 good games. So I'm just not starting him with any confidence, and hopefully you're not either. Poor Kenyon Drake. He's still winless on the year. He went from Miami to Arizona, and since he's been on Arizona, he's been winless. The other guy, Josh Gordon, has been undefeated this year, but it's looking like the Rams are probably going to pull this one off against Seattle, so he's going to lose that undefeated streak, whereas Kenyon Drake is still winless on the year. I'd probably put Kenyon Drake 11 carries, 37 yards, 3 catches for 30 yards at a mid-range 3. Johnson is going to be nothing more than a flex option, handcuff at this point. 3 carries, 19 yards, 2 catches, 34 yards, and a touchdown. Christian Kirk is going to be probably about a mid to low 2, wide receiver 2, 8 catches, 85 yards. Obviously, he's doing better in PPR leagues, not so much in standard leagues. Now we'll go to the actual game of the week, where this game was bonkers. Up and down. One team, it looked like it was just going to be a blowout. Then the other team came back, went literally right down to the wire with the helps of some penalties. San Francisco ended up edging this one out 48-46 in New Orleans. And a damn good game. On the San Francisco side, Jimmy G, stepped up. Usually, I kind of knock him for only being a game manager, but he has shown he can win pushing the ball down the field and not just managing the game behind that run game that they have. Jimmy G, 349, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's going to be especially next week against Atlanta, he's going to be a QB1. Juju called this one in our conversations that we've had. Raheem Mostert took advantage. He out-carried everybody in this backfield. 10 carries, 69 yards, 1 touchdown, added 2 catches for 40 yards and 1 touchdown. With this run game being so explosive, he's going to be a RB1. Breida's probably going to be a RB3. And then Tevin Coleman is droppable at this point. He is taking a backseat to both of these guys. He hasn't done much since that 4-touchdown game. Over a month ago? He hasn't done much since then. So Mostert's the guy to own in this backfield. And then receiver-wise, they've actually been able to sustain 3 guys, which only usually the top offenses have been able to do. Deebo Samuel, 5 catches, 76 yards, but added 2 carries for 33 yards, especially if Sanders does go down. He has been injury prone in the last couple of years. He'll have a bigger role in this offense. Right now, he's going to be a high-end 3. Sanders is going to be a high-end 2 with high-end 1 potential like we saw today. 7 catches, 157 yards, 1 touchdown, and then added a 35-yard touchdown pass. And then George Kittle, 6 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. He's still going to be a tight end number 1. I believe I know for sure top 5, but I think he might be like 2 or 3 on the year overall. Now we'll switch into these AFC home games. Baltimore went up to Buffalo and won this one. It was pretty close. Baltimore's had a kind of step back, especially quarterback-wise in the last couple weeks. Hasn't been as explosive as he's been, minus the game against the Rams. Baltimore did end up winning this one 24-17. Baltimore gets some pretty good matchups next week. They get the Jets, and then they get Cleveland in championship week. Buffalo has a bit tougher road in Pittsburgh and New England, so I might fade all these Buffalo guys, and then Baltimore guys might get a slight boost. Baltimore does play on Thursday next week, so we'll get into why that's important here in a second. But Jackson, 145 through the air, but 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Had 11 carries for 40 yards, so his rushing numbers weren't there, but he had the touchdowns as a passer. Still going to be QB1. I believe he's QB1 on the year as well. Ingram, 15 carries, 50 yards, added 3 catches for 29 yards. He's going to be a high-end 2. If Lamar Jackson wasn't stealing runs from him, he would RB1 weekly, but just because Jackson steals runs from him, he gets the knock for that. Mark Andrews left this game injured after 1 catch for 14 yards, and that's important because he has a leg contusion, but only has 4 days to recover from that. I don't really see that happening. I did have that happen to me in high school where I had just a massive bruise where it was painful to even walk. And if it's the same type of thing, because I just got a knee right below where my thigh pad ends, I caught a knee right there. It was swole up. It was purple and blue for, at least 2 or 3 weeks. It was tender. I couldn't touch my leg. I couldn't hardly walk. I had to have a brace on my leg even to run. In 4 days, it's going to be rough for him to get back. So Hayden Hurst, their first-round pick, the guy that picked over Lamar, 3 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. I see him having a fill-in role for Mark Andrews. And like I said, on the Buffalo side, I'd probably fade these guys with 2 tough matchups next week or the next 2 weeks. Kyle Allen, 146, 1 touchdown, added 2 carries for 9 yards. So not not like we usually see him. His rushing numbers were a bit down. He's still going to be a low-end 1, but next week I'd probably fade him. And then in championship week against New England, you still want to think New England is a elite defense, so I'd probably find other options for him. Devin Singletary, 17 carries, 89 yards, no touchdowns, added 6 catches for 29 yards. He has taken control of this backfield. I'm going to slide him in as a RB3 just because of the rough matchups, and then Beasley and Brown, their top receivers, I'm going to put them at a mid to low wide receiver 3 flex options for these guys. 4 catches, 29 yards for Beasley, 3 catches for 26 yards for Brown. Now let's go to the battle for Cleveland. Cincinnati lost this one on 19-27. Cincinnati don't bother playing anybody. Next week they get New England. I don't see anybody on this team doing much of anything except maybe garbage time. Maybe. This is going to be a bounce back game for New England, who has lost 2 straight. So look for them to bounce back because they are literally on to Cincinnati. And then Cleveland gets a decent matchup in Arizona before battling Baltimore in the championship weekend. So we'll get into why Arizona is a interesting matchup here in a second. But Cincinnati side, Andy Dalton, 262 through the air, no touchdowns, 1 interception, added 3 carries for 13 yards. I'm sliding him in as a QB2. Don't even bother with him next week. Joe Mixon, 146 on the ground, 1 touchdown, 3 catches for 40 yards. He's right now been a low-end 2, high-end 3, and next week I'm going to put him at a low-end 3, even flex option. Again, almost non-startable, unless you absolutely have to against New England. Same thing with Boyd, 5 catches for 75 yards. And then on Cleveland's side, Mayfield, 192 through the air, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, added 2 carries on the ground for 13 yards and a touchdown. Baker against Arizona, I can see doing a decent job, especially to new target David Njoku. Arizona is terrible. Let me say this again. Terrible against tight ends. Tyler Higbee, not even Rams' best tight end, had 100 yards and the touchdown. George Kittle had 120 yards and a touchdown on a broken ankle against them. Ross Dwelly, yes, that Ross Dwelly came in for 2 touchdowns against them in the first matchup against San Francisco. So they are absolutely terrible against tight ends. So look for Njoku to have a pretty big game next week. Nick Chubb, 15 carries, 106 yards, no touchdowns, 1 catch for 11 yards. The bad thing about Chubb is Hunt is eating into his goal line work, which is not good for Chubb owners. Volume for Chubb is still there. I'm probably notching him down to a low-end RB1 because of the volume, but it's not as much as we'd like. Kareem Hunt, 9 carries, 28 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 catches for 40 yards. He's going to be a high-end 3, low-end 2. Jarvis Landry is the receiver to own. He's going to be a wide receiver 2. OBJ is going to be a flex option, especially battling a sports hernia. Landry, 4 catches, 76 yards. OBJ, 2 catches for 39 yards. Next will be my favorite game for the week outside of my game, but because it was a battle of kickers. Jason Sanders kicked 7 field goals. Count that, 7. Setting a franchise record. He came 1 shy of the NFL record. 7 field goals, and then Ficken kicked a couple field goals for the Jets. The Jets ended up winning this one by 1 point, 22-21. On the Miami side, nothing of note really happened. Fitzpatrick, 245 through the air, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Led the team in rushing, 7 carries for 65 yards. If Parker is out next week. He did leave the game with a concussion. Look for Isaiah Ford, 6 catches, 92 yards to fill in as a wide receiver 3 flex option for you. But really, outside of that, there's nothing really to like on this Miami team. On the Jets side, kind of the same thing. They do fare a little bit better. Sam Darnold, 270 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. They get Baltimore next week, so bit tougher of a defense. And then they get Pittsburgh as well. So I'd probably fade most of these guys. We're getting into that stretch where it's time for you to probably sit Jet players. Blaj Powell filled in for Le'Veon Bell with a sickness with 19 carries, 74 yards, no touchdowns, 2 catches for 14 yards. Yeah, he's just going to fade right back in just because Bell missed with a serious illness, not an injury. Anderson, 7 catches, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. It's what we were liking to see from him most of the year, but he is more of a bust guy. Today was finally a boom. He's going to be a boomer bust wide receiver 3. Crowder, 3 catches for 30 yards. Our PPR god from early season before, mono ruined everything has definitely subsided. Just a, low end 3 flex option. Now we'll look at Denver's surprising victory. The score seems a bit closer than what the game actually was. Everything on the Houston side came in garbage time. Denver 38, Houston 24. Drew Lock is the quarterback that Denver has wanted for a long time, but because John Elway is terrible at rating quarterbacks, he hasn't been able to do. I'm just not a big fan of these guys because, division rivals and all. But Drew Lock, 309, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, added 3 carries for 15 yards. He's shaping up to be a QB1 right now. We still don't know too much about him, so I'm going to slide him in as a high-end 2. Philip Lindsay, 51 on the ground, 1 touchdown, added 2 carries for 4 yards. Lindsay is going to be a low-end 2. Freeman, 24 on the ground, no touchdowns, but added 2 catches for 8 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be nothing more than a handcuff at this point. He's barely even a flex option. He's a touchdown-dependent flex option at that. Noah Fant, 4 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. I would say more about this guy, but he was carted off with a foot injury. Not much is known yet, so just keep him on the keep looking at the reports for him. Otherwise, he's fantasy irrelevant if he's hurt. If he's not hurt, I'd probably put him in a tight end 1 category. And then Cortland Sutton, follow up his massive 2 touchdown game against the Chargers with a freaking dud. Why couldn't he do this against my team? I'm still salty about that damn game. I froze my ass off for a bullshit pass interference call for us to lose the game. Bullshit call at that, guys. I'm sorry. I'm salty about it. Froze. It's freezing Denver. And we lost on some BS. Sutton, 5 catches, 34 yards. He's going to be a high-end 2. On the Houston side, Deshaun Watson had a decent day because of garbage time. If it wasn't for garbage time, he had a absolute terrible day. But he did finish the day 292 through the air, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, but added 6 carries for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns. He saved his fantasy day with all that garbage time. Carlos Hyde, 73 yards, no touchdowns, 2 catches for 5 yards. Watson's still going to be a QB1. Hyde's going to be more of a low-end 2. Hopkins, still going to be a wide receiver 1, 7 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. So finally getting to see him ball out. It's what we like to see. Now we'll take a look at what we thought was a good team, but now they're kind of taking a seat back in Oakland. They've kind of started to fall off since their magical run at the beginning of the season. Tennessee, surprisingly good. They're not going to finish 8-8 this year, or 7-9 or 9-7. Hopefully, they're looking pretty good with Ryan Tannehill. We forget how good Ryan Tannehill is when he's actually healthy. He's always battling injuries, so that's why we were kind of unsure of him. But when he is healthy, he's a pretty good quarterback. Tennessee won this one 42-21. Tannehill 391 through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, added 4 carries for 19 yards. I'm sliding him in as a 1. Derrick Henry 103 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. People just do not want to tackle him in December, and I don't blame them. This is a lot of man running towards you. He's going to be a running back 1 on the year as well. A.J. Brown, 5 catches, 153, and 2 touchdowns. Now, next week he plays Houston. Houston has a beatable secondary. I'm going to slide him in as a high-end 2 next week just because Houston's defense is not that good. I mean, they have a beatable defense. Look at what I just said in the last review of the game. So, I mean, I could see Tennessee. They're fighting with Houston for this AFC South division crown. They play them in 2 of the next 3 weeks. So, I mean, they might get it. I like all these guys on the Tennessee side. I expect them to have similar games that they did this week. On the Oakland side, surprise to everybody, really. Josh Jacobs was out. It was such a surprise to everybody that my boss actually played him. Played a player with 0 points in the playoffs. I mean, I'm not complaining because I beat him, but, I mean, don't be that guy. Do not be that guy. All right, guys? Just don't be that guy that plays a hurt player and scores you 0 points. I'd rather you play a player and he just sucks and scores you 0 than be that guy that scores you and plays a hurt guy or an out guy. Derek Carr, 263 through the air, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's going to be a high-end 2 option. If Jacobs is out, look for Washington to be the guy. 53 on the ground, 1 touchdown, 6 catches for 43 yards. He will be a low-end 2 just because he will get some work taken away by Jalen Richard, but Washington will be the guy to own. Darren Waller, 6 catches for 73 yards. He's still going to be a tight end 1, even though in recent weeks he has, not done too hot. Now we'll slide into the game that almost didn't happen. Kansas City sent their – I don't know how you do this. I have no idea. Maybe it was equipment gate, we'll call it, because I don't know how you do this. Kansas City sent some of their equipment. They sent like 40 equipment bags. I don't know how many they normally carry. They sent 40 equipment bags with shoulder pads, helmets, all that to New Jersey. They were playing in Massachusetts. They were playing in Foxborough, and they sent it to New Jersey. I don't know how that happens. I don't know if Bill Belichick had a hand in this, but we'll call this equipment gate. So this game almost didn't happen because if they weren't able to get the equipment there by game time, they would have had to forfeit. They were actually lucky enough to get the equipment there an hour before. Usually equipment is there, I don't know, a day to 6 hours early. Kansas City did end up winning this one 23-16. There were some terrible calls. We'll call them terrible. They were just they're blown calls on New England's part that New England could have ended up winning this game if they weren't screwed. which sounds weird coming out of my mouth saying that New England's getting screwed, because usually it's the people playing against New England that does. But there were some highly questionable calls in a year of terrible officiating. Patty Mahomes, 283, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, added 6 carries for 6 yards. Still going to be a QB1. Shady McCoy with Damian Williams being out led the backfield, 11 carries for 39 yards. This backfield is getting even more of a mess because now you have Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, Deontay Thompson, Shady McCoy, and now Spencer Ware, all fighting for touches. I'd avoid this backfield. I don't have any confidence in this backfield. Travis Kelce, 7 catches, 66 yards, no touchdowns, but added 1 rush for 4 yards and a touchdown. Kelce's still going to be our tight end 1. Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 62 yards. He's still going to be a low end 1 just because of the bust potential for him, just because he is a deep threat. His ceiling is super high, but his floor isn't too low, but it's still there, noticeable with 6 catches for 62 yards. On New England's side, Brady is continuing his not so good offensive season. Brady, 169, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, added 2 carries for 20 yards. He's no more than you hate to say it, but he's not more than a QB2 at this point. James White is probably the best option. Bill Belichick, I've said this before, hates fantasy football. He hates fantasy running backs. Sonny Michel has been terrible of late. Brendan Bolden comes in and vultures touchdowns, but you won't see him for like 6 games in a row. Burkhead is hit or miss. So James White's probably going to be the best option for you. 6 carries, 33 yards, no touchdowns. 5 catches, 27 yards, no touchdowns, and then 35 yards passing. He's probably the best option for you. He's going to be a low-end 2, high-end 3 option, but he's a 0 floor guy. He does have a game where he scored negative points. So he's a 0 floor guy, but he's probably your best option. And then receiver-wise, outside of Edelman, you really can't trust anybody. Edelman's going to be a low-end 1, high-end 2 guy, 8 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And then we'll get into my game. My Chargers dominated in amazing fashion, 45-10 against Jacksonville. Phillip Rivers on his birthday, 314 through the air with 3 touchdowns, no interception. So let's go Philly Rivs. Tyrod Taylor played the whole 4th quarter for us because we were up so damn much. He added 4 completions for 26 yards and a touchdown, added 4 carries for 10 yards. So let's go with that. We had our backup in, and he still scored a touchdown against Jacksonville. Austin Eckler is, I believe, the first guy this year to go 100-100. He had 8 carries, 101 rushing yards, no touchdowns, added 4 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. He had a 84-yard screen touchdown. This guy just took off and was never touched. Melvin Gordon, 12 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. 5 catches for 29 yards. He would have had a better game, but he was vultured for a touchdown by Derek Watt. Yes, there's a 3rd Watt brother, and he's on the Chargers. He's our amazing fullback, leads the league in special teams tackles, and it was his first career touchdown. So, you know what, Watt? Congratulations, buddy. Keenan Allen, 5 catches, 83 yards. He's still a wide receiver 1 just because of the volume that he gets. Mike Williams, 2 catches, 63 yards, and his first touchdown of the year. Sucks to be him this year because he had 11 touchdowns this year, 1 touchdown this year, but he's closing in on 1,000 receiving yards. He's going to be probably put him at a mid to high wide receiver 3. Hunter Henry, 2 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be a TE1. On the Jacksonville side, Minshew, 162, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, added 6 carries for 36 yards. He's going to be a QB2. Fournette is going to be a running back 2, 50 yards on the ground, no touchdowns, 3 catches for 13 yards. DJ Chark is still going to be a wide receiver 1. It's going to be a low wide receiver 1, but 9 catches for 75 yards, so the volume is there. It's just he didn't find the end zone this game, but the volume is there, so we like that, especially for PPR leagues. So it looks like the Rams game, Seahawks game just ended. Let me do a little bit of research so I can get you guys a breakdown on this, and then we will get into waiver wire pickups for the year, or for